Two creation stories, the hidden mystery in Genesis. When we open the book of Genesis, we encounter not one, but two distinct accounts of creation. This peculiarity has puzzled scholars, theologians, and believers for centuries. What if these seemingly contradictory narratives hold a deeper truth about humanity's origins? One that challenges everything we thought we knew about Adam and the beginning of human consciousness. In the first chapter of Genesis, we read, "Then God said, 'Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness.'" This declaration is majestic, cosmic in scope. Here, humanity emerges as the crowning achievement of creation, made male and female simultaneously, blessed with divine purpose. The Hebrew word used here is Adam, not as a personal name, but as a reference to humanity as a whole. This is creation on a grand scale, painted with broad strokes across the canvas of existence. But then something curious happens. As we turn the page to Genesis 2, the lens zooms in dramatically. "Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life." This is intimate, personal, a divine potter crafting a single being. Here, Adam becomes Adam, a specific individual. The sequence changes too. First comes the man, then the garden, then the animals, and finally, almost as an afterthought, the woman drawn from his very being. These divergent accounts have led many to assume contradiction or error. But what if we're missing something profound? Ancient Hebrew scholars understood these passages differently. They saw the first account as revealing humanity's cosmic purpose, while the second narrated our spiritual awakening. It's like watching a play, first from the back of the theater to see the grand spectacle, then from the front row to witness the intimate details. The key lies in the Hebrew language itself. In Genesis 1, the term bara is used for create, a word reserved exclusively for divine action, suggesting spiritual rather than physical creation. In Genesis 2, we find yatsar, to form or mold, implying a more tangible, earthly process. These linguistic nuances suggest we're not reading conflicting accounts, but rather viewing the same truth through different lenses. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. The first account speaks of humanity created in God's image, B'Tselem Elohim. This phrase appears nowhere else in the creation narrative. It suggests something unprecedented, beings capable of reflecting divine consciousness. Then in the second account, we see this consciousness individualized, personalized in the figure of Adam. Modern biblical scholars have begun to see these accounts as complementary rather than contradictory. The first chapter establishes humanity's place in the cosmic order, image-bearers of the divine, stewards of creation. The second chapter reveals how this divine consciousness first awakened in human experience, through relationship, choice, and moral awareness. This understanding opens up remarkable possibilities. Could it be that Genesis is telling us not just about the beginning of human biology, but about the dawn of human consciousness? Is Adam's story not about the first human being, but about the first being to awaken to divine awareness? Consider the implications. If Genesis 1 describes the creation of humanity as a species, and Genesis 2 focuses on the awakening of spiritual consciousness in Adam, we're looking at a narrative far more sophisticated than a simple chronological account. We're witnessing the story of how humans first became aware of their divine potential and moral responsibility. Think of it like the difference between creating a computer and installing its operating system. The hardware might exist first, but it's the software that brings consciousness and capability. Could Adam represent not the first human body, but the first human to receive the divine software of spiritual awareness? This interpretation doesn't just resolve apparent contradictions, it deepens our understanding of human nature itself. It suggests that what makes us uniquely human isn't just our physical form, but our capacity for divine consciousness, moral choice, and spiritual relationship. As we close this first chapter of our exploration, we're left with provocative questions. If Adam wasn't the first human, but the first spiritually conscious human, what implications does this have for our understanding of human origins? And more importantly, what does it tell us about our own potential for spiritual awakening? The answers may lie in what happens next, in the mysterious world outside Eden, where other humans seem to already exist, and in the profound implications this has for our understanding of human consciousness and divine purpose. But that's a story for our next chapter. The Mystery Beyond Eden, Uncovering Ancient Civilizations. As we venture beyond the gates of Eden, we encounter one of the Bible's most perplexing mysteries, a world that seems already populated, bustling with activity and rich with human civilization. This revelation emerges through the story of Cain, and it challenges everything we thought we knew about human origins. After Cain's infamous act of fratricide, we witness something extraordinary. The text tells us, "Then Cain went out from the Lord's presence and dwelt in the land of Nod, east of Eden." But it's what happens next that raises profound questions. "And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. And he built a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son." Let's pause here and consider the implications. If Adam, Eve, and Cain, with his deceased brother Abel, were the only humans on earth, where did Cain's wife come from? More intriguingly, why would someone build a city if there were only a handful of people alive? Who would live in this city? Who would help construct it? The mystery deepens when we examine Cain's earlier words. After receiving his punishment, he laments, "Anyone who finds me will kill me." This statement reveals a startling assumption, that there were other people in the world who might seek vengeance. The Lord even acknowledges this possibility by placing a mark on Cain, lest anyone finding him should kill him. Archaeological evidence adds another layer to this mystery. Recent discoveries have uncovered sophisticated civilizations dating back far earlier than traditional biblical chronology would suggest. The ancient city of Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, for instance, features complex stone structures and religious symbols dating back 12,000 years, long before the conventional timing of Adam and Eve. But rather than undermining the biblical narrative, these discoveries might actually support a more nuanced understanding of Genesis. Consider this. What if the story of Eden isn't about the first humans on earth, but about the first humans to enter into a specific covenant relationship with God? The Hebrew text offers fascinating clues. When God places Adam in the garden to tend and keep it, the words used, avad and shamar, are the same terms later used to describe priestly duties in the temple. This suggests Adam's role was not merely agricultural but sacerdotal. He was humanity's first priest, placed in Eden as a kind of prototype temple. This interpretation gains strength when we examine the geographical details in Genesis. Eden is described as being located at the confluence of 4 rivers, including the Tigris and Euphrates. This places it in the heart of the ancient Near East, amidst regions where archaeologists have discovered evidence of early human civilizations. But here's where the story takes an even more fascinating turn. Ancient Near Eastern texts often describe sacred gardens where the gods dwelt and where select humans served as intermediaries between the divine and mortal realms. Could Eden have been such a place? Not the only human habitat, but a sacred space where God initiated a special relationship with chosen representatives of humanity? This would explain why Cain could find both a wife and the resources to build a city in the land of Nod. It would account for his fear of other people seeking vengeance. And it would align with archaeological evidence of ancient civilizations existing alongside the biblical narrative. The implications are profound. If Eden was a sacred space rather than the only human habitat, then Adam and Eve's story becomes even more significant. They weren't just the first humans. They were the first humans chosen for a divine purpose, the first to bear the full weight of moral consciousness and spiritual responsibility. Think of it like this. Imagine humanity as a vast network of early civilizations, developing tools, culture, and basic religious awareness. Then, in one sacred space, God initiates a deeper relationship with chosen representatives, elevating human consciousness to a new level of spiritual and moral awareness. This understanding transforms our reading of subsequent events. The fallen angels taking human wives, the Nephilim, the flood narrative. All these stories take on new meaning when we consider them in the context of interaction between Eden's lineage and the broader human population. But this raises even more intriguing questions. If there were humans outside Eden, what was their spiritual status? How did they relate to the divine? And most importantly, what does this tell us about God's plan for human spiritual evolution? These questions lead us to even more remarkable discoveries. ones that bridge ancient wisdom with modern scientific understanding. But to fully grasp their significance, we must first examine what genetics and archaeology are revealing about human origins. Science and faith, bridging ancient wisdom with modern discovery. What if the greatest conflict between science and religion isn't a conflict at all, but rather two different languages describing the same profound truth? As we delve into modern genetic and archaeological discoveries, we find ourselves facing an extraordinary possibility, one that might transform our understanding of both human origins and spiritual awakening. Let's begin with a remarkable scientific concept: mitochondrial Eve and Y-chromosomal Adam. These terms, coined by geneticists, refer to our most recent common ancestors through maternal and paternal lines respectively. Scientists have dated mitochondrial Eve to roughly 150,000 to 200,000 years ago. Y-chromosomal Adam lived between 60,000 to 300,000 years ago. At first glance, these dates seem to contradict biblical chronology. But here's where it gets fascinating. These genetic Adams and Eves weren't the only humans alive at their time. They were simply the ones whose genetic lineages survived to the present day. This scientific understanding parallels our earlier theological insight about Eden's Adam being not the first human, but the first spiritually awakened one. Recent archaeological discoveries add another layer to this convergence. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey revealed sophisticated religious structures dating back 12,000 years, far earlier than we previously thought possible. This ancient temple complex suggests that spiritual awareness and organized religion emerged earlier and more suddenly than expected. But the most startling evidence comes from genetic studies of human consciousness itself. Scientists have identified what they call the Great Leap Forward, a period roughly 50,000 years ago when human culture suddenly exploded with symbolic thinking, complex language, and spiritual awareness. This mysterious quantum leap in human consciousness has puzzled researchers for decades. Could this scientific great leap forward correspond to what Genesis describes in spiritual terms, the moment when humans first became capable of true moral awareness and divine relationship? The parallel is striking. Science describes a sudden emergence of higher consciousness, while Genesis narrates the awakening of spiritual awareness in Adam. Consider this groundbreaking perspective. What if Eden represents not a physical location alone, but a state of consciousness? The biblical narrative describes Adam being formed from dust. But perhaps this refers not to physical creation, but to the moment when divine consciousness first emerged within an existing human population. This interpretation finds support in both ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience. Studies of consciousness suggest that human awareness exists at different levels, with spiritual and moral consciousness representing higher-order functions. The story of Adam might be describing the first emergence of these higher states of consciousness, the moment when humans first became capable of true relationship with the divine. But here's where the evidence becomes truly revolutionary. Genetic studies have revealed that human brains underwent a series of significant mutations around the time of the Great Leap Forward. These genetic changes affected our capacity for complex language, symbolic thinking, and possibly spiritual awareness. In other words, science has discovered physical evidence of humanity's spiritual awakening. Archaeological evidence supports this convergence. Early human burial sites show a gradual progression from simple interment to complex ritual burial, suggesting an evolving awareness of spirituality in the afterlife. This progression mirrors the biblical narrative of increasing spiritual consciousness following Adam's awakening. The implications are profound. If Adam represents not the first human being, but the first spiritually awakened human, then Genesis isn't just telling us about our physical origins, it's describing the dawn of human spiritual consciousness. This understanding bridges the apparent gap between evolution and creation, suggesting they describe different aspects of the same magnificent process. But this raises an even more intriguing possibility. If spiritual consciousness emerged once in human history, could it represent not the end, but the beginning of human spiritual evolution? Are we still in the process of awakening to higher levels of consciousness and divine awareness? Modern research into consciousness and spiritual experience suggests this might be the case. Studies of meditation, mystical experiences, and altered states of consciousness reveal that human awareness can expand far beyond our normal waking state. Could these experiences be glimpses of the next stage in human spiritual evolution? This synthesis of scientific and spiritual understanding doesn't diminish either perspective. It enriches both. Science helps us understand the physical mechanisms of consciousness evolution, while religion provides the framework for understanding its spiritual significance. Together, they tell a more complete story of human awakening. As we stand at this intersection of science and faith, we find ourselves facing not a contradiction, but a convergence. The ancient wisdom of Genesis and the modern discoveries of science aren't opposed. They're complementary languages, describing different aspects of the same profound truth about human nature and divine purpose. But this understanding leads us to an even more crucial question. If Adam's awakening represents the beginning of human spiritual consciousness, what does this mean for our own spiritual journey today? The answer might transform not just our understanding of the past, but our vision of humanity's future. The modern awakening. Finding meaning in an ancient story. As we've journeyed through ancient texts, scientific discoveries, and spiritual insights, we arrive at perhaps the most crucial question. What does this understanding of Adam mean for us today? How does this new perspective on human origins and spiritual consciousness transform our own search for meaning and purpose? Let's begin with a startling realization. We are living through our own great leap forward. In the past century, human consciousness has expanded dramatically through technological advancement, global connectivity, and spiritual exploration. Just as Adam's awakening marked a quantum leap in human spiritual awareness, we might be experiencing a similar transformation today. Consider the parallels. In Genesis, Adam's awakening brought both enlightenment and responsibility. The ability to name the animals, symbolic understanding, and the duty to tend the garden, environmental stewardship. Today, we face similar challenges. Unprecedented access to knowledge, coupled with the responsibility to protect our planetary garden. But this modern awakening comes with its own unique challenges. Like Adam, we find ourselves facing choices between competing sources of wisdom. The tree of knowledge in our modern Eden might be artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, or quantum computing. Each offers profound possibilities for human advancement, but also raises deep ethical questions about our relationship with creation and the divine. The story of Cain takes on new relevance in this context. After leaving Eden, he built a city, creating civilization while separated from direct divine presence. Are we doing something similar? As we build our digital cities and virtual worlds, are we moving closer to or further from our spiritual essence? Modern psychology offers fascinating insights into this dilemma. Studies show that despite our technological advancement, humans increasingly report feelings of disconnection, anxiety, and spiritual hunger. It's as if our external progress has outpaced our internal development. We've built magnificent cities but lost touch with our garden. This brings us to a crucial understanding. Adam's story isn't just historical, it's archetypal. Each of us faces our own Eden moment, our own choice between different types of knowledge, our own opportunity for spiritual awakening. The question isn't whether we're descended from Adam biologically, but whether we'll follow his path of spiritual consciousness evolution. Research in consciousness studies supports this perspective. Scientists have identified what they call peak experiences. Moments of heightened awareness and spiritual connection that mirror the described state of Adam before the fall. These experiences suggest that the capacity for divine consciousness isn't just historical, it's written into our very nature. But here's where our modern situation becomes uniquely challenging. Unlike Adam, we face not one tree of knowledge, but an entire forest. Social media, 24-hour news cycles, and information overload can either elevate or overwhelm our consciousness. The choice isn't simply between good and evil, but between different levels of awareness and engagement with reality. This understanding transforms how we read Genesis. The fall wasn't just about disobedience, it was about choosing a lower form of consciousness over a higher one. When Adam and Eve ate the fruit, they didn't gain knowledge so much as they lost a higher form of awareness, trading divine consciousness for mere intellectual knowledge. Today, we face similar choices. Will we use technology to enhance our spiritual awareness, or will we let it diminish our capacity for deep connection? Will our expanding knowledge lead us closer to or further from divine consciousness? These aren't just philosophical questions, they're practical challenges we face daily. The good news is that modern research also reveals our extraordinary capacity for spiritual growth. Studies of meditation, contemplative practice, and consciousness expansion show that humans can develop levels of awareness far beyond our normal state. Just as Adam was created with the potential for divine consciousness, we too carry this capacity for higher awareness. This brings us to a revolutionary possibility. What if we're not just reading about Adam's story? What if we're living it? What if the challenges we face today are our opportunity to reclaim the type of consciousness Adam possessed in Eden? Not through rejection of knowledge, but through its proper integration with spiritual awareness. The implications are profound. If Adam's story represents the first emergence of spiritual consciousness, then our current global challenges might represent the next stage in this evolution. We're not just facing a crisis of technology or environment, we're facing a crisis of consciousness itself. But with this crisis comes unprecedented opportunity. Never before have humans had such access to both scientific knowledge and spiritual wisdom. Never before have we had such potential to integrate these different forms of understanding into a higher synthesis. As we stand at this crossroads, Adam's story offers not just historical insight, but practical guidance. It suggests that true advancement comes not through knowledge alone, but through the integration of knowledge with spiritual consciousness. The question is, are we ready to take this next step in human spiritual evolution? The answer may lie in understanding what happened after Eden, not just historically, but what continues to happen in the ongoing story of human consciousness development. The next evolution, awakening to our divine purpose. As we conclude our exploration of Adam's story and its implications for modern humanity, we find ourselves standing at a remarkable threshold. The question is no longer just about who Adam was, but about who we are becoming. What if the next chapter in human spiritual evolution isn't written in ancient texts, but in the choices we make today? Let's gather the threads of our journey. We've discovered that Adam's story isn't simply about the first human, but about the first awakening of divine consciousness. We've seen how science and spirituality converge to tell a deeper story about human potential. And we've recognized our own moment in history as potentially another great leap forward in human consciousness. But here's the crucial insight that brings it all together. Adam's story isn't finished. It's still unfolding through us. Each of us carries within ourselves the same potential for divine consciousness that first awakened in Eden. The question is, how do we activate this potential in our modern world? The answer might lie in understanding what the Bible calls the image of God. When Genesis says humans were created in God's image, it wasn't describing physical appearance, but a capacity for divine consciousness. This capacity isn't just a historical artifact, it's a living potential within each of us, waiting to be awakened. Modern research into consciousness transformation offers practical insights into this awakening. Studies of contemplative practices show that specific methods can enhance our awareness, deepen our spiritual connection, and expand our consciousness. These aren't just religious practices, they're technological tools for consciousness evolution. But here's where our modern situation becomes both challenging and exciting. Unlike Adam, we're not starting from scratch. We inherit both the wisdom of ancient traditions and the insights of modern science. We have unprecedented access to both spiritual knowledge and scientific understanding. This convergence creates unique opportunities for consciousness evolution. Consider the implications. If Adam's awakening represented the first emergence of spiritual consciousness, and if we carry that same potential, then our current global challenges might be catalysts for the next evolutionary leap. Our environmental crisis, technological revolution, and spiritual hunger might be pushing us toward a new level of awareness. The evidence for this possibility surrounds us. Around the world, people are seeking deeper meaning, exploring consciousness, and integrating ancient wisdom with modern understanding. We're witnessing a global awakening to the need for higher consciousness, not just for individual well-being, but for planetary survival. This brings us to a powerful realization. The garden we're called to tend isn't just physical, it's consciousness itself. Just as Adam was given responsibility for Eden, we're responsible for nurturing the evolution of human awareness. This isn't just a spiritual task. It's a practical necessity for addressing our global challenges. So what does this mean for you personally? It means you're not just a reader of Adam's story, you're a participant in its continuing unfoldment. Your spiritual journey, your consciousness development, your choices about how to engage with knowledge and wisdom, these are all part of humanity's ongoing evolution. The invitation is clear. Will you step into your role as a conscious participant in human spiritual evolution? Will you engage with both ancient wisdom and modern knowledge to develop higher awareness? Will you help tend the garden of consciousness that's crucial for our collective future? The tools are available. From meditation and contemplative practice to scientific understanding and technological innovation, we have unprecedented resources for consciousness development. The challenge isn't access to knowledge. It's integrating that knowledge into a higher synthesis of awareness. As we close this exploration, remember, Adam's story isn't just about the past. It's about the potential within each of us. The same divine consciousness that first awakened in Eden is available now, waiting to be realized in new ways through our modern understanding and practice. The question isn't whether we're descended from Adam, it's whether we'll fulfill the potential he represented. Will we choose higher consciousness over mere knowledge? Will we integrate spiritual wisdom with scientific understanding? Will we step into our role as conscious participants in human evolution? The next chapter in human spiritual evolution isn't written in stone. It's being written through our choices today. The garden of consciousness awaits our tending. The potential for divine awareness seeks expression through our awakening. The story that began in Eden continues through us. The invitation stands. The potential awaits. The future beckons. How will you participate in humanity's next great awakening? If this exploration of Adam's story has sparked new insights or questions in your mind, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective and experiences could help others on their own journey of understanding. For those who found value in this discussion, please consider subscribing to our channel. We explore similar profound questions about human consciousness, ancient wisdom, and modern understanding in our weekly videos. If you believe this message could benefit others in their spiritual and intellectual journey, please share this video with friends and family who might appreciate a deeper look at these timeless questions. And if you found this content meaningful, taking a moment to like this video helps us reach more people seeking similar understanding. Every engagement helps build our community of thoughtful explorers. Until next time, may your own journey of consciousness continue to unfold in meaningful ways.